Most communities are known for their contributions to society, and you expect places in the West to do exactly that, especially when some locations are known for their most famous people. But don't be fooled, every city has a dark side. This is Jubilee Lum, but she usually went by Miley. She was a beloved mother and daughter. However, she did get mixed in with the wrong crowd, and this may have cost her her life. Jubilee was believed to be a sex worker for extra cash. Her fiancé encouraged her to stay home and leave the sketchy lifestyle alone, but she didn't. But despite all of this, she was still loved. On August 24th, 1999, she was seen getting into a 1987 or 1990 white van with swing-out doors. It was also noted that the van had swing-out windows as well. And sadly, just hours later, her body was located in a garbage can behind a florist, her cause of death being strangulation. Unfortunately, not much is known about the investigation, and there hasn't been any big developments on the case. But it's been a long 25-year wait for Jubilee's justice, and hopefully, it won't be too much longer. This is Lindsay Harris. She was a 21-year-old woman who had her whole life ahead of her, but suddenly she vanished and was found dismembered. On May 4th, 2005, Lindsay made a bank deposit at her local bank. The next day, she called local utility companies, and that was the last time she was heard alive. 3 days later, her boyfriend, Solomon Barron, called Lindsay's parents to tell them that he hadn't heard from her in a while, and he believed that she was missing. He wasn't there, but once he realized something was wrong, he immediately flew back to Nevada and reported her missing. Soon after, her rental car was found abandoned in the desert, and her credit cards hadn't been used since May 4th. But the worst news came on May 23rd, when children that were playing found a severed leg. It only was a couple hundred yards from Interstate 55 in Divernon, Illinois, which was thousands of miles away from her home. Unfortunately, that leg wouldn't be identified as Lindsay's until 3 years later. And by that time, the momentum of the case had slowed and lost public attention. But due to other women dying in similar circumstances, Lindsay's case is frequently being renewed. So hopefully, this almost 20-year-old cold case can be solved. This is Jesse Wilson. He was a 10-year-old boy who had his whole life ahead of him. Yet, he disappeared in the strangest circumstances. On July 17, 2016, his stepmother, Crystal, told the police that Jesse willingly left his home through the window and ran away. However, the police didn't buy it and had Crystal immediately on their radar. Sadly, in March of 2018, Jesse's remains were found, and it was just a couple miles down the road from his house. The cause of death was undetermined, but police sensed foul play, especially from his stepmother Crystal. But there wasn't enough evidence until now. Investigators found DNA evidence from Crystal's Jeep, and her GPS data placed her extremely close to Jesse's remains. She was arrested in Gainesville, Georgia, and charged with concealment of a body. But it is unclear if she was charged with Jesse's murder. This is Jamie Kamai. He was a loving and protective father to his 2 children, but unfortunately, road rage from another driver would end his life. It was a little after 8 a.m., and Jamie was making his way to a babysitter to drop his kids off. All while this drive, Jamie had noticed the aggressive driver tailgating him for miles. Eventually, Jamie had had enough and stopped his car in the traffic lane and got out to confront the driver. However, the driver had a gun and shot Jamie twice, one in the hand and one in the side. But somehow, Jamie walked back to his car with his children still inside and attempted to flee. But sadly, it was too late. The other man had already got out of his vehicle and walked up to Jamie's door while he was facing away and shot him directly in the back. When everything was over and the driver sped off, Jamie's stepson, Darius, got out of the car with his hands up. There was plenty of witnesses surrounding him, but none of them had a description of the killer. And to make things more grim, Jamie did not recover and died at the local hospital. Even now, 23 years later, no witnesses or any substantial leads have popped up, leaving this cold case as a tragic mystery. This is Jean Abla. She had recently moved into San Juan to be closer to her family. She was currently employed at a cafe and actively working to get her life back together. However, that never came into fruition. Nobody really knows what happened to Jean. All we really know is that she disappeared. Until one day, kids were playing at the edge of town and found her remains. And alongside it was a bloody dress. And the sad thing is, she disappeared in 1982 and was found almost a year later in 1983. The police identified her by her teeth records, and they believe that the reason why her body was dug up was due to the construction of I-40. Unfortunately, we don't know much about the investigation. However, 42 years have passed and no leads yet.